Chapter 2 Firefight. They all stood around the room examining the oddities that adorned it like little children looking at movies inside a rental shop. Frost and Solomon both stood over the dead midget, looking with fascination at the destroyed carcass. So he was just dancing? Solomon asked, bewildered. Yeah. Like a little jig. Like some kind of fucking leprechaun. A hint of unease was in Tyr's voice, but the main portion of his vocalization was anger. So why'd you shoot him? Well, I don't know. The hell would you have done? Probably called to him, told him to get on the ground, asked him about the ship, a dozen or so other things. Get off his ass, Saul, said Frost, nudging the corpse with his toe. I'd have shot him. Probably more than 3 times, too. The corpse slid over, smearing a snail trail of gore on the marble statue behind it. Yeah, well, that's why I lead. Frost scoffed. Tyr just shook his head and walked off to join the rest of the crew in scouring the room for valuables. All the men examined an odd part of the wall, which was made to look like wood. The well-polished wooden surface was interrupted by a small, barely distinguishable seam running through it. Preacher announced that there was a moderately large space behind the wall, and the crew was debating between figuring out the mechanism or blowing it open. Frost looked at Solomon. I don't like this shit at all. Dead midgets? Solomon asked. Frost shook his head and gestured towards the jester statue. No. That. Oh. Wouldn't worry about it too much. Whole ship feels like some weird art project. Probably just some hippie colony. He paused and examined it. Not bad craftsmanship, though. What kind of fucking art project redoes their entire geedunk like this? Hippies? Ain't no fucking hippies. This shit is weird, dude. Tyr said old boy in the chair was already dead when he got here. It is what it is, Frost. You want to go back to the ship now? We haven't even broke even on fuel for getting out here yet. There's other ships. I'd rather get in another firefight. Can't like every day on the job, Frost. You want to get in a firefight, go re-enlist. It is what it is. And what it is weird and creepy. Oh well. Never took you for the superstitious type. Didn't think I was either till we came in here. Why you on my ass today? Solomon shook his head. I just don't see the big deal. I'd think you'd be happy we aren't getting shot at. Fuck that. You can understand a bullet. The men all excitedly started babbling and cheering as the door slid open. As it turned out, all they'd needed to do was set off a small EMP to disable the electromagnets holding it closed. The door swung open without so much as a squeak. Solomon stalked towards the men to assume point. Frost gave one more look over his shoulder and shuddered. Could have swore he saw the statue blink. The door led to a long corridor, far longer than what Preacher led them to believe. Their lights didn't even hit the end of the passage. The metal walls were decorated in bizarre paintings, some large, some small, but all holding the same subject matter. Here was a Renaissance-style painting of a jester standing in front of the king's throne. There was a fool made of fractals cackling into the void. Elsewhere was a finely done ink piece of the Fool Tarot. They all gawked at the sight, hesitating to cross the threshold. "Do you think we should, clear the rest of the ship first? Maybe?" offered Titan. Solomon shrugged. "Maybe, but it doesn't seem like there's much to it. Besides, if your ship had a secret passage, would you store your valuables in an office?" "Maybe a safe?" "Maybe so." With the final statement hanging in the air, Solomon stepped forwards. The darkness seemed to encroach around them, pressing on their lights like water puts pressure on the hull of a submarine. The faces of the jesters passed by, some sad, some happy, some just abstract shapes. They walked for about 5 minutes, when they arrived at the end of the hall. A spiral staircase led upwards, while 2 metal doors made of steel bars flanked either side of them. The door on their left held various cabinets and a small metal desk. Cobwebs and dust covered everything within the room. It looked as though it had sat just as it was since the craft had been built. On their right was a large room. The walls were made of large cabinets, and there was a metal table in the center of the room. Something big was covered by a tarp in the middle of the table. Meter stepped forwards in front of the door on the right and produced a lockpicking set from his pocket. Although the tools were comically small in his hands, he worked extremely efficiently. Within a few seconds the door was open. The men moved in, almost immediately pulling the tarp off. "Holy shit," Tyr breathed. "Is that what I think it is?" said Frost, gingerly examining the painting before them. "Preacher, analyze," Solomon commanded. Preacher's small red beams shot out over the painting. It was oil on canvas, depicting a jester clothed in red and yellow. The jester sat upon a throne made from ivory, a cigarette in his fingers. The man dressed in red, black, and vibrant yellow, with only his face exposed. The face in question was a sickening shade of pale, and it was split into a horrendous toothy grin. His eyes were swirling yellow and black vortexes, in which, if one examined under a microscope, one could see galaxy after galaxy after galaxy. Around the jester and his throne was a darkness that seemed as though it may at any moment spill from the frame and plunge the earth into a black void. This is an authentic work by Giannando Giovalt. Title: The Cosmic Smile. Preacher rattled off. "Holy shit," Solomon said, grin cracking under his helmet. "We just hit the fucking big time, boys." "I don't get it. Just a painting like everything else they had," Meter griped. "No," said Frost. "This is something entirely different. Look, Geovault paintings are shit that's in a museum on big hub planets. I'm talking like museums on Earth, and Vesvinus might have 4 or 5 of his works total. Big time painter. I mean big time." "They said anyone that looks at this one would go crazy," Gearhead said as he lightly ran his fingers along the golden frame of the painting. "The lost Geovault painting, banned from most planets." Solomon smacked Gearhead's hand. "And you're looking at it just fine right now. All that's made up bullshit. Frost, you want to carry this back?" "I can." "Don't fucking drop it if I trust you with this." "Holy shit, would you climb down out of my ass? I won't drop it." The two held a tense few moments of eye contact. "All right," said Solomon, breaking the standoff. "The rest of you, let's dig through these boxes and fill some bags to send with him." And so they did. They pulled out box after box from the cabinets on the wall. They were predominantly empty, however they found enough jewelry and wads of interplanetary exchange credits to fill up a whole backpack. It was elected that since Titan also wanted to go back, he would return with Frost and the painting. The two practically sprinted down the hall when Solomon set them free. "Check the other room?" asked Meter. "Nah, looks empty enough." "Up the stairs we go," replied Solomon. "Preacher, any idea what's up there?" Judging by the standard layout of a Class 2 cargo/cruiser hybrid like this, the bridge would be directly above us. However, since most vessels do not have passages such as the one we are currently inhabiting, this is merely a prediction based on available data. "Thanks." "My pleasure." They climbed the stairs, hustling up the spiral sounding like a herd of elephants. At the top was something of a large, circular lounge, laid out much in the same way the Geedunk was. However, this one had no table, statues, or radio. There were 3 cushy leather chairs set in the room, all of them facing something of a dark window into the bridge. The men went tense as they looked out the large rectangular window onto the bridge. The bridge hosted all the regular equipment that a merchant ship should. The captain's seat was dead center, looking onto various computer monitors showing different statistics of the ship. There were 2 mate pits, wherein the captain's mates would sit off to the left and right. Large indentations in the floor filled with seats and computer monitors to observe all the ship's engines, thrusters, bearings, oil, coolant, and anything else one could think of. To the left of the captain's chair there was the co-captain's seat, wherein was set a smaller version of everything the captain had access to. These were not the things which made the raiders go tense, however. In the center of the bridge was something of a theatrical production. The metallic floor was disrupted by a large circular rug, which was crimson, black, and yellow in the center. In the middle was something of a cylindrical totem, with a box set on top of it. Various cards jutted out from the box, stuck in between the wooden boards which comprised it. Candles also sat around the box, in various stages of melting. There were 9 robed figures gathered around the box, all clad in deep crimson robes, save one who wore a regal yellow robe. The man in yellow had his arms spread wide, a jester's cap set on his head, and a plain white mask on his face. The masked one let out a low, guttural chant, which was echoed by his 8 acolytes. All of the words were muffled by the windows in the wall. "What the fuck?" murmured Tyr. Their guns were slowly raised, aiming towards the men. "Can they see us?" whispered Gearhead, his finger on the trigger of his rifle. "Don't think so. Think this thing is one-sided," replied Solomon. "Fuck it." Meter spoke now, loudly. "Fuck these guys." "Meter, don't fucking..." Solomon's sentence was cut off by the roar of Meter's gun. All their guns roared, bullets discharging as fast as they could pull the trigger. The one-way glass shattered, sending twirling shards of mirrored glass spinning through the air like a million tiny crying mirrors. Blood, black masks, the light of a gun barrel, crimson, it all flashed in the surface of the shattered mirror fragments. The robed figures tried to run. A slug from Tyr's shotgun turned one's head into red sludge, splattering the feet of the altar and sending chunks fanning onto the ground. The man in yellow stumbled, falling over and clutching at his gut. 2 managed to escape, diving into a pit. Gunfire from Gearhead's rifle followed them, tearing into the computer systems and sending a spray of sparks and broken circuit boards skittering across the floor. Tyr was the first to leap over the windows, letting his shotgun hang by its strap while he unholstered his revolver. One of the remaining figures threw its hands up in the air and cried out for mercy. Tyr's revolver barked, bucking against his hand. The robed man clutched at his throat, blood spurting out in bursts like an uncorked barrel. The other reached inside his robes, withdrawing a dagger and rushing forwards. The revolver flashed twice, decimating the man's skull. The other bandits now walked through the scene, examining it. The man in yellow writhed on the ground, clutching a bleeding hole in his gut, retching a bit into his mouth. Solomon kept his rifle trained on the man's head, then wordlessly bent over and removed the porcelain mask. The face beneath the mask was bizarre, immediately provoking a reaction within the pit of Solomon's soul. A large smile full of blunted and blocky teeth spread across the man's face from one ear to the other. Odd angular growth jutted out from his face in various locations. In other places, the skin was twisted and contorted into spiral patterns. Solomon flinched back, firing twice and ruining the hideous visage.
"Didn't want to ask him nothing?"
Tyr inquired, grinning. Solomon looked at the bloody wreck where once the face had been, his hands quivering a slight bit. He inhaled deep. "No, can't really say that I do." They examined the blood-soaked scene now, looking over everything and taking in every detail. The wooden pillar on which the box sat was more or less benign in appearance. The box, too, was nothing fancy, save for the cards inserted into it. Meter snatched one of the cards and examined the face of the fool, blindfolded and traveling down the road with all his earthly possessions over his back. Meter scoffed, flicking the card to the floor where it landed in a pool of blood. The crimson slowly soaked into the card, staining its pristine surface. Meter's sausage-like fingers fumbled with the lock only for a second before flipping the clasp and opening the box. His eyes went wide. The relic was set on a small cushion made of vibrant yellow and practically begged the large man to touch it. The colorization played at the corners of his mind, his brain unable to even process what shape the relic was, much too fascinated by the color. The color was something he'd never seen before, something new, something not unlike yellow or purple, but different entirely. Bile crept from his stomach to his throat, and just looking at the color, he began to develop a strong urge to laugh. He let out a small chuckle, gazing at the relic.
"What is it, meat?"
asked Tyr.
It's...
He couldn't finish his answer. He couldn't help himself. Meter burst into a string of sniveling laughter. It was not a joyous laughter, but an uncomfortable laughter. One which really should have been a sob, but merely had developed differently within the folds of his throat. Solomon glanced into the box. Putrid disgust overwhelmed his gut as a singular sobbing chuckle forced its way out of his throat. His mind raced back to days long past, days of trenches, mortars, bullets, dirt, and barbed wire. His hand shot out and he slammed the lid closed.
"What the hell is it?"
Tyr prodded again, moving to open it. Solomon slapped his hand away.
"Don't look at it."
A few residual chuckles came out of his throat, like air bubbles rising to the surface of water.
"Well, is it worth anything?"
"Maybe. Dunno. We'll take it." He snatched the wooden box off the altar and threw it into his bag without a further word. They searched the rest of the bodies, taking several daggers and 3 pistols. It was unanimously agreed upon that they'd had enough of the strange environment they found themselves in. Without another word, they stalked back to the airlock like a parade of damned men. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the end of another episode. I hope you really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun to write. Next episode's going to be a little less on the cosmic horror and a little more on the action, but rest assured this is still a cosmic horror series at the end of the day. As usual, intro, outro music by Carl Casey, White Bat Audio. In terms of updates from me, not much going on this week. I'm still kind of... I want to keep the schedule on this one loose because it's probably going to change in the middle of it. I just accepted a new job, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to consistently upload on Mondays or not, but I'm damn sure going to try. I just finished editing on a new novel, which will be the first in a trilogy. I don't want to say too much on that yet. Can I get this closer to my face? I don't know if that even did anything, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I also, today, I recorded for another Cozy Fantasy. I got to finish writing. I got another episode in the pike. I got a lot of stuff in the pike, just all the time, rest assured. I'm kind of giving myself a grace period to not think about my Western series, which should theoretically be the next series to launch on the channel and should theoretically be ready to go as soon as Void Wolves is concluded, if not a little earlier, Lord willing. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I'm recording this really because I'm trying to feign being productive. I don't want to call it writer's block because I don't like admitting I have writer's block, but I'm just not feeling any of the projects I've kind of got at my fingertips right now. So I'm just kind of knocking out bitch work, as I would call it, on a lot of other projects, just editing, recording, not the fun stuff like writing. So yeah, I hope y'all's week is going wonderful. I hope this upcoming week goes wonderful for you. I hope it's just blessed in every way it can possibly be blessed in. So that's all from me. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you, Lord willing, next Monday.